Normalize?
Compose for normalize.
NFC is the default for normalize if you don't pass in there. All right, let's move on unless we have more questions about string normalization. So I think the big point is if you don't know where your string's coming from, then you're going to have to do a lot of things to that string to make sure it's safe, right? You already hopefully do. This is just another thing that you should probably do.
So what's the values of it? So is that then file secure?
So that one's false, right? This is the default is the normalization form C. That one's false. And this is running it through the normalization form compatible composed. And it is true down here. So those two are kind of the key points here. Those two strings, they may look different, right? And they kind of do a little bit. You can kind of see that one's a literature if you look really, really close. They're compatible. They can kind of mean the same thing, like you as a reader going through that probably wouldn't have a problem, but technically under the hood, they don't have the same meanings. They're canonically different, meaning they are not the same look and same meaning. They just happen to kind of be canonical.
So we're dealing with like max length attribute with the input. What does that measure?
I believe under the hood, I'd have to check. But I think browsers, their implementation, like at least I know with the pattern stuff, they're even put aware. I think you'd be okay there, but I'm 80% sure. All right, BiDi, right? So that's really nerdy speak for bidirectional text. Or also like right to left, left to right. This is dealing with Arabic, Hebrew, Yiddish, anything else? Purdue. Is that what you said? Persian, hieroglyphics. Okay. Who thinks this is easy? Who's messed with this? Tried doing things with this? Was it easy?
Nope.
Right. This is not like, oh yeah, just go ahead and add this. Right. This is not simple. All right. Pop quiz. If I were to take this is the HTML attribute dir, all things have it, I'm saying, hey, show this right to left. Is it going to be A, raise your hand? B, raise your hand? C, raise your hand? D, a bunch of you guys are chickens, like you didn't even vote. Because all these trick questions. Okay, A, raise your hand. B, C, D. It is, hey. For workspaces, would it matter? No. Who said that? Yeah, that's no, it wouldn't matter. So the only visible difference at this point in time is that I'm right aligned, all right? Like my text isn't over here. Where'd the little red pointer thing go? Right? I'm aligned right over here, not over here. That's the only visible difference. So we didn't render. I think a lot of people initially kind of think, yeah, it should be something like this. We just mirror it, right? But it's like all the other stuff, it's actually really complex. Okay. So a couple of terms. Base direction. There is an underlying algorithm to determine how to render characters. And think of that. At the end of the day, there's cases where there's a tiebreaker that needs to happen, right? And based on that tiebreaker, it's going to look to our base direction, and that's what we just did with that dir attribute. Is we set the base direction That's just basically one piece of the things that's considered when it tries to figure out how to render a page. Okay. So when we did direction equals RTL, all we did was define the base direction. All right, pop quiz. Here we have a div. We set the direction from right to left, and then we did some numbers followed by a comma, followed by see no equal, hear no equal, speak no equal, followed by exclamation point. Okay. So we're saying, hey, the base direction here is right to left. Raise your hand if you think it's A. All right. So B, if you notice, it looks like instead, this from left to right has see, hear, speak. This would speak, hear, see. So these are backwards, but it's not clear. Who thinks B? All right. Who thinks C? Who thinks D?
We all voted that time.
I know. All right, that would be C. Right? So in C, if we want to just kind of look a little closer, you can kind of see the nuance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is on the right side, right? So our logical order we put them in was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, see, hear, speak. Over here, from the right-hand side, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, right? See, hear, speak, exclamation, right? So it didn't do a mirror. Kind of did this weird thing that we maybe don't understand yet. Hopefully we will in just a few minutes. Okay? So that's the answer. So kind of a fun fact. Bidirectional text, so languages that read right to left aren't actually 100% right to left. Numbers, whether they're our number system or like the Arab Indic number system, they're always read with the bigger number on the left. So if you can think about reading in that situation, if this was a right to left language, and then we were to come across up to a number, right? We would read that number from the left to the right, and then jump back right to left. That makes sense? And anytime, like in right to left or right to left languages where you quote or have Latin-based characters, that segment is written left to right. So that would look like, something in Arabic that I can't even pretend to speak, going this way, right? Followed by going that way, Latin characters, and then more Arabic going that way. So it's not, they don't just go, right? Or to you guys, I guess, like that. It's like this, then that, then this. There's these things called directional runs that we'll talk about. All right, for that pop quiz. So if I were to take these 3 characters, and in the logical order, in sequence, I typed that, followed by that, followed by that. No markup. This is my text editor. We're going to render A. Raise your hand A. Raise your hand B. So this is one of those cases where it's hard to replicate because things just automatically happen. So I'll do that. Oops. I'll do that first one. And I'll do that second one. And I'll do that third one. This actually spells Sarah, if you're wondering. Okay. And then I come up here and I go down. I'm hitting down. Like usually your editors would go to the left side, to the beginning. Well, it's going to the right side, which is the beginning, right? So right now I hit backspace. I haven't done anything. I'm removing that space above. Right? All right.
This is looking really good for April Fool's Day.
And then one more time. One more time. Right, same thing down here. Other side of it, or it goes away, right? Now that N-looking thing to us. So no markup. This is just how this behaves under the hood.
How long did you have to practice that?
Oh man, I had to figure out just the right way to get this to work. When I tried it individually, it's just like attaching everywhere, like those combining characters. And yeah, that's where I was hiding last week. Right. Okay, so let's talk about why. Okay, so we talked about that low-level algorithm called the BiDi algorithm, I think. So there are characters in Unicode that are strongly typed, strongly directionally typed. That pretty much no matter what, unless you specifically override it, will be rendered a certain way. So our Latin characters are always left to right. You have to explicitly make it not that way. Okay, and there's things you have to do to make that happen. And like Arabic and Hebrew and right to left languages, those are strongly typed right to left. So no matter where you put those anywhere in any document, no matter what it is, right, it's going to suddenly know kind of the low level under the hood that it switched that context and worked that way.
Does that mean that the text align defaults to the right as well?
Like a CSS property?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, unfortunately. So if you'll notice in CSS, a lot of the newer properties that are coming out don't use left and right. They start and end. So, which is actually much nicer because I know at least one Arabic site that we have that they use text align left. And if it was start, there would be no problem. But it's a particular thing that's serving up multiple languages in multiple directions, and you go visit that and it doesn't look right if you speak that. If you read that writing.
What's that example you had at the very beginning? You did the direction and put ABC all the way to the right.
Yeah.
But is that just because of the div? I'm trying to reconcile what you're saying now
Okay.
with what I saw.
Give me like 2 more slides. I'll see if I answer that.
I start working with characters where you want like A, B, C, D,
It would be, I'll show you, but it would be the same, right? So let's talk about the different types. You're saying what happens if you combine 2 strongly typed?
I guess I'm curious, yeah, if you combine
It
2
would-
strongly typed.
Without spaces, it doesn't matter. Because they're strongly typed. So if I go back to my text editor,
Because of the code point? Because of the code point knows? Is that what you mean?
the code part, like we talked about, each character has some properties in that big ugly text file.
Yeah.
One of them is how to behave in a bidirectional text situation. So depending on, this is where it gets tricky to implement right to left, is because there are often cases where it's Arabic, and then you need some Latin characters, and there's some under the hood stuff happening that may format in a way you don't want it to. Right, so right now I am at the end of the line, right? And I type A, B, C.
And hence the warning about concatenation.
Yeah, like there's a number of things that make problematic there. So strongly typed, there's those characters.
So, I mean, is that a problem? Because let's say someone has a Latin name and they're Hebrew, they read, oh, that's going to screw everything up.
So example of citations, right? Like you're citing an article. That article has an author. The author is got a Latin-based name, and you're talking about that person in Arabic,
Right.
you know.
So how does that work?
Is that very carefully? Yeah. All right. So in addition to strongly typed, you have kind of these neutrally typed things. These are like your white space, some of your punctuation. It has some rules. Like let's say these things are in between strongly typed things. When they are, and they're of the same directionality, right? They're going to assume that same thing. So when we do A, B, C, D space, D, E, F, right? That space assumes left to right. It knows, right? And vice versa, when we do Arabic characters, space, and then more Arabic characters, it knows that space is right to left, okay? But then what happens when you do strong space, strong of the other direction, is when you kind of get this thing where it's going to assume the prevailing base direction, whatever it in that particular case inherited from either there's like hidden marks that you can do this with, or code like HTML tags, if that's what we're talking about. Does that make sense? So based on that, I am a jerk. We type in this logical order. That's the official term for it, right? This is the start to end way we've typed things, the beginning and end, right? Start, end. A, B, C, space, this character, that character, that character. Do we get 1? Raise your hand. 2, raise your hand. Yeah, 3, raise your hand. So based on that algorithm, the first thing they typed was A, B, C, right? So that's going to be that. And then they type these things, which is going to be that. That make sense?
So the answer two.
The answer is 2. But it actually depends on your base direction. So base direction left to right, that's what you're going to get, right? You get A, B, C, and then look, these characters, I could even type them in that way, right? The logical order I put them in were that what looks to us like a W, a backwards R, and then an N. Like that's the order I typed them in, but even my text editor, that low-level rendering changed it around, right? I couldn't even actually properly explain this to you. I've been trying, yeah. Right? But because it's left to right, we're left aligned, ABC comes first from that spine, and then this is what the text does, but even our left to right is bidirectional if we ever quote a sequence of right to left characters, right? So there isn't really 100% left to right, 100% right to left, okay? And then down here we do the reverse in a base direction of right to left. So we get ABC because we type those in first. Then we get whatever that, but the order is, logical order was 1, 2, 3, 4 for the space, 5, 6, 7. Make sense? No? That's all I got, sorry. All right.
It doesn't make sense, but it's the way
It is the way it is, and you know, it's a big, giant, enormous problem to solve, right? Like, and
Yeah, but it assumes left to right unless we say otherwise, or?
so you're depending on the browser can make some assumptions. I think in HTML the base is default to left to right.
So the last time you did this to us, you showed us all the inconsistencies and the frustrations of understanding the underlying. You gave us the technology to help us with it, so where's the technology?
Sorry. Understanding, that's all I got. There are some things will help you that I'll talk about in a second, but okay. So how is this going to render in a browser? Well, we're saying, hey, we set the direction to right to left. Here's maybe a new tag for you guys. That means bidirectional isolate. We're saying, hey, take this character, this has been in HTML for a while. It's not new. Take whatever's in between here and isolate it from its current base direction, right?
Let it create some base direction.
Right? And then we're saying greater than symbol, in a right to left context, where one of these is in that and one of them's not. Raise your hand if you think it's A, B, C, D.
Symbol doesn't switch around.
So before I get to the answer,
You don't see the HTML.
it was the ones that are the alligators were eating each other. Or kissing. Okay. So one of the properties in Unicode characters is how if it's a mirrored character, meaning notice how A never switched right to left, right? But there are some things that will actually flip and mirror based on whether it's in a right to left or left to right. Okay, those are mirrored characters. Brackets, parentheses, I think some punctuation maybe, have those characteristics. So in this case, let's take a look. We're assuming that the assumed base direction here is left to right, and we isolate R and R, which has no effect on the R because R does not have, in the character definition of R, it says it has no mirror properties, so it has no effect on it whatsoever. Okay, but now we get down here, we go right to left, and we're doing the same thing. So right to left, starting over here. Things in BDI tags are what's rendering red. So our greater than in a right to left is being split back out into a left to right because we're isolating it, right? So this is a Latin-based right, left to right, greater than, followed by another one outside of that where now they're touching each other. That's why the answer was that. And same with here. The exact same paren symbol in there rendered differently because one of them assumes left to right behavior, one assumes right to left.
So how does Toys R Us do it?
Maybe they, you can actually buy, I think, your own
It's not
Unicode
Toys
character.
R Us, it's Toys Ya Us, which is Russian.
I I think you can like give money to get your own Unicode character. Like I think you can. So maybe that's what they did. And then kind of one thing that's interesting down here, right? 10 is less than 20 is less than 30 up here, or greater than, right? We switch the direction manually with that, and we kind of get the same, like 10 is less than, right, the right to left direction. And we did this explicitly because we said this is what it is. But down here, this is a left to right direction. And because of the algorithm under the hood, this is first, and it's basically got the correct kind of stuff down there. So it's actually, it figured out, it affected those greater than symbols without code. Yep.
So generally speaking, most of the time, if I'm going to get a translation from in a language like Arabic or Hebrew or some other language that's right to left, is it usually going to come to me formatted that if they were to look at that text as it exists in the database, someone who speaks that language could read it right to left, or is it going to come into me left to right? Because you're showing me right here, though it's read right to left, I'm typing it left to right.
Yeah.
Crazy confusing. But do they usually give it to you that way when doing translations? Is that usually the standard?
What's usually, it depends on the nature of what you make. So if you're largely in a situation where you just render pages full on without doing stuff, right, then probably you'll have less concern with that, and that will be an upstream concern, right? However, if you're building like a Cubs app, for instance, and there are different parts of the page that are changing at different, you're probably going to have to be somewhat prepared to troubleshoot things like this on occasion.
Right. I'm just curious because it's like, do I have to know for a fact, like, if something's coming in, should I always assume? It depends on what the translation is, obviously. But I'm just curious if there's usually a standard that when people do the translations, if they do them left to right or right to left.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a need for localization experts to help out there, and there's a need for developers to be able to communicate back and forth with each other in that regard. That's my opinion. So we talked about that BDI, that's that isolate. We're saying, hey, adjust the direction, right? There's another one, an override. You can actually hard code. This is how you would change Latin characters to be backwards. So you can see that down there at the bottom. We wrapped A, B, C, D in a override situation where it's rendered right to left. And that's how we got it to actually flip. Okay. So a couple of HTML tags if you're doing this kind of stuff to get familiar with. BDI, BDO. Probably just BDI. Questions, comments? Too much? Too much information? Maybe? All right. I've been waiting for this one.
Everything since you said glyph has been just like wow.
That's fair. All right, let's talk about language and locale codes, right? We deal with this here at the church. It's true. So there is a standard, and the standard is ISO 639. Well, there are lots of standards because that's how we do, right? And it is basically concerned with representation of names and languages or language groups kind of thing. So you can often see in our URLs the three character code for a language, like ENG, SPA, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's familiar with that? Yes? You guys awake? Did I break your brains? Okay.
I'm just scared to answer any question.
All right. There's also so this is -3, and this is -1. -3 came after -1, right?
Are you sure?
For sure.
What happened to dash?
There is a -2. There is some variations in between there. There's a 4 and a 5. I think the 5 was withdrew. I can't remember. It's a standard. There's like at least 15, right? So.
That's so standard.
Right. But generally speaking,
639.1 for Spanish ES.
yes. Have I understood you what you asked correctly?
Yeah.
Yes, ES. Is it?
They
It
changed
is.
the standard between 631-1 to 639-3 to SPA. For
So-
Spanish for some-
This is ES and this is SPA. Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Logical, right? Is ESP was taken? I don't know. Anyway, at a very low level, there's a standards body that gives every language a code. A lot of our infrastructure here relies on this one, right? which can be problematic for us as you're a web developer because that's not what we deal with. Right? We deal with something called IETF language tags, right? And a language tag for in this manner, right, could be EN or ES, right? But it could be more, hey, this is how you speak Portuguese and Brazilian, or Minnan Chinese as spoken in Taiwan using traditional Han characters. Okay. So this is the notice some of the they're using this is legitimate stuff. I won't go into detail because it's kind of boring. But the gist is this thing here uses the 2-digit country code when it's there, the -1, and when it's not there, it'll actually go to the 3. But it prefers the shortest one possible. Okay.
Do you have a standard?
If we did, it's the wrong one. So. Wrong one from me as a web developer's perspective, right? Like everything I do deals with these language tags, right? Because the reason why is these language tags are adopted in HTTP, W3C, HTML, XML, PNG, ANSI, ECMA, Unicode, right? Everything we do, we deal with the language tag for the most part. And for example, in the window.navigator.language is going to give us a IETF language tag. It's not going to give us the -3 3-digit thing. It's going to actually give us that, right? All of these APIs here, same thing. They use the language tags. HTTP headers are the language tags, right? HTML, you want to set the length of your document, you're going to be using that language tag. CSS, most of your JavaScript, like third-party libraries, that's what they interact with as well. Yep.
So Sabuano has no code in the 2-digit one. It only has a 3-digit one. It's CEB. There's no other one.
So I don't know if I said it here.
So when we use those things, we'll get 2 digits, 2 digits, 2 digits, all of a sudden 3 digits because it's Sabuano.
Correct.
That's nice. The BCP 47 account for that.
And so if you ever want to know what the problem with all those standards is, like there's all those standards. If you want like an authoritative way of doing it, this is it. Like this will tell you which one to use for the language you want, whether it's the 2-digit or the 3. It's not vague in any way. So if I click on that link, that's going to take me to another big giant, long text file that has a list of everything and which code to use for that language.
Is there a Java library, Java library that will do that for us?
And you're asking the wrong guy. Sorry. There is JavaScript one. Yes.
When you're talking about language codes, are you using that to also include like locale codes, not just language itself, but like?
So here's this is the full entire AETF language tag capability. Language, the extension language, the script, the region, the variant, blah, 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 right? The best practices, right? Use the minimal amount required to represent your purposes. Like for instance, there is no value in representing Japanese as JA-JP, Japanese as spoken in Japan, unless you're trying to exclude everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it comes in handy when you have to represent currencies.
Right.
That's dependent upon region and what
Right.
language they're looking at.
Yeah.
So
So
you
this
might want to do ENUS versus ENGB.
correct.
Exactly.
Unless you like extra U's in your flavors. What's that? So I think this thing, I don't have a complete understanding of all this. My understanding is the reason why there's one, like -1, -2, -3, -4, there may have been some backtracking that happened there. And then some of the, some languages that were accounted for during that time ended up with a code that was during that period of time where they backtracked from. And generally speaking, 1 or 3, right? But this one, there are some languages that do require, from my understanding, to use that particular extension.
Well, I think creating something like this too, there's optional, like everything's not required.
So the only thing required is this, right?
So you could have a language and then private use.
That's it, yeah, or just, I mean, literally EN. If that's all you care about in this context, that's all you would put. So. And to answer your question, but not in a Java way, in a JavaScript way, there is a nice library on NPM called Lanes where you can say, hey, from version 3, where that code is Korean, give me more detail. Name, this is the code for 1, code for 2, some of these other standards as well. So if you have to ever do some mapping and converting there, this is a widely used, like thousands of downloads a day type of library. Questions, comments about that?
I think that library is pretty big.
Yeah, you probably don't want to ship it to the browser, right? Yeah, if you had to do some browser based, then you know, probably stand up this service as just a little this library as a little service for your application potentially, where you hit it just in the parts you need.
Do you know if there is a general standard that we in ICS try to adhere to, not just in the front end, but like the databases and stuff like that? Because I mean, you see at least 3, 4, I mean, many different types of standards being used in several different instances. MDM alone, you know, uses at least 2, it seems.
MDM?
So we do label some of them as old.
Yeah.
Like, this is the old codes that we use. We don't use them anymore. But is there like a general standard? Because that would be incredibly helpful just to know. Like, is there a standard that we should be trying to go to?
I don't know because I can only speak from like a web developer standpoint, and from my standpoint, using anything but this would be extra work, right? And so if I only had to worry about me in web development world, there is no reason to use anything else. Like everything that I'll ever interact with is going to be in this. And so I can't speak for other disciplines. So I don't know. Questions, comments? We bored? It's too much information? Because this is going to get really bad now. All right. I'll probably just go to one note, like this is a lot and a lot of time. If you want to leave, just leave. I don't even care. So I won't be offended. I'm going to keep going to one though. You're welcome to stay. All right, let's talk about regular expressions, which isn't already geeky enough, right? True or false?
Question mark.
True or false, or I give up at this point. Okay, who thinks it's true? A, raise your hand. Who thinks it's B, false? Raise your hand. And everyone else gave up? Okay. It was false. So an extension to one of the ES6 features they added was an extension to regular expressions where it's all about you. You just add the you there, you're saying, hey, evaluate this in a Unicode way. It no longer, the problem before that, right, it saw this astral character, right, the thing in that other plane, the higher number 1, it saw that as 2 bytes, as 2 separate characters, right? This says, hey, be smart about how you evaluate this, right? And no longer thinks that. So that's what that you does.
That's really hard too, though. I mean, it seems like it could help you, but then it seemed that it hurt you as well.
Is there any reason to not use the U? Because it's asking compatible too, right?
Only thing I've read about it is be careful when you use the U and the I together. And so I don't know if I have enough knowledge to answer yes, always do that or not. Oh, actually, I did read, like this is, so one of the guys on the V8, the Chrome team, his recommendation was on all new regular expressions moving forward that you write, use the U. Anything else that you've done in the past, don't touch because it does change the behavior of some things in some ways. So.
That's what I meant by like an ambiguous behavior, right? You would really
Right.
think about it.
Yeah. So I wouldn't retrofit things unless you're prepared to actually test around that. All right, pop quiz. True or false?
There's no you. Did that
I'm going to say true because I want to say false, and I'm probably wrong.
False.
Oh.
Why? No you. Right? Same thing. So this is the character, right? That is in the what? Astral plane, which means it has a much higher code point, which means it requires 4 bytes to represent, right?
Well, why wouldn't the 4 bytes compare to the 4 bytes?
So if you were to look under the hood, there's actually, I think we kind of did that with, I think this character, where it's actually two surrogate pairs.
Right, but
Right.
would they compare against each other?
Well, this is saying, hey, does this match twice?
So in the last example, was it trying to match half of the character?
So yeah, it was looking at just the first
First
first pair of that.
byte and then the 2
Yeah.
first bytes.
So it's either 2 or 4 bytes, right? So the first pair is 2, the second pair is 3, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so the gist is making sure you're evaluating what you think you are. Okay? All right. You really need a U here. Here we're saying start a new line. Anything that's not an A, followed by the end line.
At the end of the line is one.
In this time we started in line.
And that's obviously longer than.
Yeah, you do because the character is 2 characters.
You do because this is the number expression that I'm writing, and I always use.
So that's the right answer, yeah. The reason why, again, I think Brandon was saying, is that it was saying, hey, start of the line, end of the line, in between there, only 1 character. And at this point in the process, that's seen as 2 characters unless you say, hey, run with Unicode compatibility. Okay. Lots of little gotchas there. Fun fact, like if you have a build process set up and you have to target browsers that don't support ES6, like Babel does take care of converting that -u into this really gnarly looking regular expression. All right, and then kind of some more kind of fun things that are going to help with this. Fun is maybe a subjective word. So extensions to regular expressions include property matching. So Unicode the Unicode characters each have some properties associated with it. Some of them is whether or not they're decimal numbers, right, or just a number in general. And it'll let you do that and then run tests against things like this or that, in which case all 3 of these things are true. Because those are all numeric. They're either decimal numbers or on the bottom one, they are just numbers.
Wow.
So that'll be helpful. That'll be nice, right? And that's a stage 3 feature, which means either probably next year or the year after that before it's an official thing, and then depending on the browser, another up to a year before it's in there. And until then, there are some libraries out there that help you do this, and this is one of them. So it lets you kind of create these regular expressions in that way, and then it knows how to handle that. Okay. Language translation. This is a fast one. All right, what's wrong with this?
Not everybody's first name, last name.
What are all the things wrong with this?
You're splitting it into first name and last name.
What's wrong with that?
There's a lot of places you do that paradox. They may have more names, they may only have 1 name.
Good.
Chinese, they put the last name first and last name is surname.
Sometimes the orders mix. Sometimes there is no thing, right? Like, what names come first? What is the last name? Like, those are questions that you have to ask sometimes. Like, they mean different things. Okay. How about this? What's wrong with this? Here we're trying to be. We've abstracted a little bit, and we're like, okay, greeting, name. We're not specific on the name, and then the message. What's wrong with that?
The locale may have the greeting after the name.
Okay.
You're assuming punctuation.
Yeah. So in addition to, I made some assumptions that aren't true, right? Including whether the greeting is there always, right? So be careful when you template like strings that you're prepared for the things that are different. How about this? This one came when I asked our translation people like what the most common mistake is, or a list of them, and this was kind of the one that he came at. Hey, translation team, can you translate my strings bundle? right? Here are what they are in English. Right. So what he said, I thought that was kind of, what do you mean, like the courtship or like the calendar date, right? Like, you want to go on a calendar with me? I don't know.
Not ask your date to go home.
So yeah, careful with string concatenations, no hard-coded strings. Translators need context. I mean, careful, like when you make assumptions, like validate them, okay? And there we have a team available to you to interact with that will help you validate that if you need to. All right. Date for these are we're all a breeze now. No more pop quizzes. Okay. Date formatting. Things are now built into JavaScript ES6. Nice things, right? Where you can do locale date string. You can. This is going to default to what your browser set at. You can actually change and specify if you want to change things, right? You can format somewhat. There's various support about each browser having that, which looks something like that. Right? So even Internet Explorer has basic support, IE11, for some of these things, depending on what you have to support. Right? There's, you have some really good options now without shipping down a ginormous like Moment.js library or something. Right?
Doesn't work with the 3 character codes.
And it works with the IETF language tags. Right? That's what it affects. So here's a fun little thing I just kind of put into a code pen where I can change, and under the hood, all I'm doing is saying new international date time format. I tell what locale I want, which is based on what they select. This is the format I want them in, and it takes care of punctuation, arranging things, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can see like, let's go Arabic, right? And so the nice thing about this, this is built in. There's no library shipping to make that happen. Again, at IE11 and on up.
Still have to set that RGL.
I do, yeah, you're right. I didn't bake that into my demo, but yes. And then if you are in a situation where you have to go even further back than IE11, I'm really sorry, and here's monkeys. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the people who made Moment.js, they recently came out with another library that's way more lightweight than Moment.js.
Cool.
I don't remember exactly what it's called at this moment, but yeah, so it is significantly lighter than Moment.js and can still do a lot of the because of the advent of a lot of the new
Very cool.
date formatting.
That one too. That's why that lets you like get exactly to the function of a date that you want without bringing on everything. So it's a little more modular. I've never used the one you're talking about.
Still pretty.
Yeah. Ideally, like this is so important that it really should be baked into the platform, and it is just at various levels of adoption. Right. All right. Number formatting. Same thing. We have some built-in support. Right. We want to format 3500, we can do that. We can pass it an argument. It takes an IETF language tag, right? And we can format that. Here's Playground, where we can change things around, kind of see what happens. I think I started at 1,000,000, and I'm incrementing 1/4 of one every second or something. But again, no libraries required to do this. This should probably set the right to left, right? But I didn't. Okay, so built in, which is nice. Support, same thing. I11. There are other kind of like format to parts. It's kind of cool. Like sometimes you only want parts of things to arrange in a certain way. It gives you access to that. Same, no I11 support there. But if you noticing a trend, Globalized.js is a really good globalization library. It's pretty big, so use it carefully. But it'll handle some of this if you need to do that. All right, collation and sorting. Pop quiz. Should I do this? A, no, or B, no? Which one?
C, yes.
So this worked great when we were just dealing with ASCII, right? Because ASCII was done in a way where the code points were done sequentially to match, while we would logically like sort A through Z. Right? Those assumptions are gone, as I hope you can see by now when we talk about combining characters, when we talk about Chinese, Japanese, Korean, graphemes or whatever, right? So why sorting strings by their code point no longer works? So solution, there you go, built right in now, locale compare. You can put two strings against each other, and regardless of locale, it should tell you which one comes first. Yeah.
Does that also handle normalization?
I don't know, that's a good question. I would assume so.
Call normalize on all three of them before I pass them in.
I'd have to do some, I would assume at that point, but I can't say for sure. Good question. And then, for instance, this also you can customize. So if you wanted, if your default document is in your browser default is English in the U.S., but you wanted to sort some Spanish characters, you can actually override the default by doing something like that. Okay, now we're pretty much at the end. These are the building blocks, right? So Unicode creates this common locale data repo CLDR. If you ever have questions about how things should be in a particular locale, this is where you would go to look. Or you can ask the language team or the localization team, and I imagine this is where they would go to look. And it provides kind of those key building blocks to software support, and it's really, really low level. A lot of these libraries we've been interacting with are built on that, but if you ever need to go directly to the authority, that's what it's called, CLDR. This is not a web thing, this is not a JavaScript thing, this is a thing for all those things. I won't get into it, but pattern matching, dates, times, names, just a bunch of things, all kind of just a centralized repo of all the things that change from locale to locale and how they change per locale. Okay? So imagine that's a lot of information. And then another building block, so the CLDR and this ICU are both Unicode projects. These are part of Unicode, right? So ICU is International Components for Unicode, and this is an open source low-level implementation written in C, C++, and Java that handles it interacts kind of with that CLDR stuff and provides you with tools doing that, and they're becoming baked in, like into the browser. That's where like a lot of that international, that INTL stuff is coming from. On the node side, it's kind of baked in there, but depending on what you're doing, you might need a special build. And whatnot. But that's things for like converting encodings, collation and sorting, formatting, all those things, time calculations, regular expressions, bidirectional stuff, text boundaries, all this kind of stuff. The low-level thing, the source of authority there is this ICU. So no matter what you program in, this is relevant to you. And finally, internal help on this kind of stuff. We have an internationalization team. I think Dan's over here. Anyone else with them can raise their hand. But they're happy to help. They have experts in, like last night I met someone that was our resident Arabic expert, and very, very happy, like willing to help. They want to help. So if you need authoritative information on something, they want to help you. They're there for that. So. All right, I think I'm done. Yep.